You know that very special feeling? When your brain wakes up at 2 a.m., not because you have anxiety, not because you drink too much coffee, but because it decided, completely unprompted, to hand you a theme song from 1995. That happened to me, and today I'm making it your problem. Because today we are cracking open 3 secret trapdoors from your childhood brain that you didn't even know were still locked. A PBS puppet clubhouse that cost more than most indie films, and went toe-to-toe with Barney. And nobody talks about it. A cartoon where literally everyone had a job. A vehicle shaped like a snack, and enough serotonin to power a small country. And a giant green dragon, who started life as a government energy conservation mascot like most kids' shows characters do, ended up in the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, and got taken out by a street light. Grab your emotional support Capri Sun, we're going in. Let's start with the one you might remember the least, which, honestly, is the most criminal part of this whole episode. The puzzle place.
I know something Julie that I want to share. I know somewhere. Katie. Let me take you there.
PBS, 1995. Picture this, a bright, color-blocked clubhouse where puppet kids, actual gorgeous, expressive puppets, would gather to work out real problems. Not, oh no, I spilled my juice problems. We're talking bullying, identity, family structure, why the kid at school said your name like that. Heavy stuff, wrapped in a set that looked like someone bedazzled a daycare and gave it a corner office. But here's the thing, and this is what nobody tells you. This show wasn't some little public access passion project. This was a moonshot. In 1991, the Corporation for Public Broadcasting handed over $4.5 million federal dollars to develop what was originally called, and I love this, the Puzzle Factory. The pitch? A brand new preschool series, the first major one since Sesame Street. And it was going to be, and I'm quoting directly from the press at the time, more sociological than Sesame Street. More sociological than Sesame Street for 4-year-olds in 1991. That's not a kid's show. That's a TED Talk with puppets. And who did they bring in to make those puppets look real enough to emotionally devastate a child? Kevin Clash, the man, the myth, the puppeteer, who also brought a certain red furry monster to life. Yeah, Elmo's guy was building the puzzle place. The show premiered nationally on PBS on January 16th, 1995, and right out of the gate, it was working. KCET's executives were publicly saying the show was rating right behind Barney and Friends. Right behind Barney. In 1995, do you know how impossible that sounds? Because here's where the story gets juicy. By March of that same year, the budget had ballooned to $6.5 million, and they were still $2 million short. $2 million short, and they were already filming. Southern California Edison underwrote $3.5 million. Licensing advances brought in another $2.3. Fisher-Price was on board. Sony Wonder for home video. Sony Music for audio. Russ Berry for gift items. Every kids show in 1995 was briefly a startup, and the puzzle place was Silicon Valley in a puppet costume. And speaking of people who went places after this, let me hand you a wait, that person moment, because the music for this show was co-written by a guy named David Yazbek. David Yazbek, remember that name. Because after writing feel-good puppet songs for PBS preschoolers, he went on to write the music and lyrics for the Broadway musical adaptation of The Full Monty. From PBS Puppet Therapy to Broadway, that's not a career pivot, that's a character arc. But Yazbek wasn't the only one from the show who turned out to have an absolutely wild Where Are They Now story. And that brings me to the Puppeteers themselves, because 3 of them went on to become some of the most recognized names in children's entertainment. But I'm going to make you wait for that, because first, we need to talk about a cartoon town where everyone has a job, nobody is stressed, and somehow, that's the most comforting thing that's ever existed. If the puzzle place was a sociological experiment with googly eyes, the busy world of Richard Scarry was a warm hug from a storybook that had somehow learned to move. You know Richard Scarry, the books. The illustrated world where a pickle-shaped car is a completely normal vehicle, where a worm wearing a single shoe is a trusted community member, where every single page is just busy. Happily, productively, chaotically busy. Now take that energy and make it a cartoon. That's Busytown, and it was gorgeous. Here's what's wild. This show didn't start on Nick Jr. It premiered on Showtime in March of 1994. Cable. Premium cable. Like the channel your parents had to pay extra for. Huckle Cat was out here behind a paywall. Then, on July 3rd, 1995, boom, Nick Jr. daily lineup, 9:30 in the morning, Eastern and Pacific. The Busytown gang just showed up like a post-credits scene, like Nick Jr. sent a car to pick them up from Showtime and said, "You belong with us now." And the show itself? Pure structure, pure comfort. Every episode was a mini-story. Problem appears, everyone pitches in, problem solved, someone drives away, in a car shaped like a snap. 65 episodes of that. Canada and France co-produced it together, which, when you think about it, is very on brand. Two extremely polite countries making the most wholesome cartoon imaginable. Now, voice cast. Because this is where it gets good. Huckle Cat, the main character, was voiced by Sonya Ball. And if that name doesn't ring a bell, let me give you a different name. Jane Reed, as in Arthur's mom, on Arthur. The same woman voicing your beloved Huckle Cat was also in your living room every afternoon as the Red family matriarch. One actress, two childhoods, full overlap. That's not a coincidence. That's the Canadian voice acting community just quietly running 90s kids television from a single building in Montreal. And the music, because this show's music is a core part of why it felt like it felt. The theme was composed by Milan Kimlicka, lyrics by Sarah Zahn, underscore by Laurent Petit-Girard. Three people responsible for that specific, bouncy, cozy warmth that made you feel like the world was a good place, everyone had a job, and nothing bad could ever happen. Busytown lied to us. Beautifully, we should thank it. But as much as I love a cartoon town where a pickle car is considered normal transportation, nothing in this entire episode prepared me for what happens when you take an energy conservation play from 1982, give it a dragon costume, and accidentally launch it into the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade. That story is next, and I promise you, it goes exactly as chaotically as you're imagining. Okay, Dudley the Dragon. Let me just set the scene for you. Ontario, Canada. The Ministry of Energy, the government, commissions an energy conservation play for kids to teach them about not wasting electricity. The play is called The Conserving Kingdom. The main character is a dragon named Dudley. A decade later, two producers, Ira Levy and Peter Williamson, buy the rights to this government dragon. They build a full-body costume. They cast real actors. They add puppets. They add musical numbers. They make a whole live-action children's TV show for TV Ontario and YTV. Dudley the Dragon went from a government public service announcement to a full television franchise with his own Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade balloon. That's not a career, that's a prophecy. The show itself was smart. The creators were very deliberate about positioning it as slightly older than Barney, their word. The target was roughly 3 to 7, and they leaned into environmentalism, friendship, and pro-social values. Musical lessons delivered by a giant green dragon in a forest. And it worked. The show aired in Canada, picked up PBS carriage in the United States through WEDU, and apparently licensed to over 180 territories internationally, which, if true, means Dudley the Dragon was a global ambassador for not littering. And then there's the merchandise strategy, which is where this show becomes absolutely unhinged in the best possible way. In a 1996 profile in Maclean's magazine, a real mainstream Canadian publication, the creators revealed their brand rules. Their requirements for licensed merchandise? Natural fibers only, no synthetic fabrics. Food products? No sugar, no preservatives. Dudley the Dragon had a Whole Foods policy in 1996, before Whole Foods was even a cultural reference point. This government energy dragon was out here demanding organic merch while Barney was slapping his face on a fruit snack. But none of that. Not the origin story, not the organic merchandise, not the 180 territories. None of it is the moment that defines Dudley the Dragon's legacy. That moment happened on November 23rd, 1995. Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, New York City, Broadway. A brand new, giant, helium-filled Dudley the Dragon balloon made its debut, complete with sneakers, because of course the dragon wears sneakers. The balloon had trouble. Handlers struggled. Dudley did not complete the route normally. Now, the exact chain of events got more dramatic with every retelling, as legendary moments do, but what was reported at the time by UPI is that this sneaker-wearing dragon balloon had serious control issues coming down Broadway. Later retrospectives, including one from Entertainment Weekly, list this among the most memorable Macy's parade mishaps in history. Dudley the Dragon started as a government PSA, ended up in the Macy's parade, and got taken out by the route itself. That is not a setback. That is mythology. But here's the thing about Dudley that genuinely surprised me in the research. Graham Greene won a Gemini Award for his performance on this show in 1994. For those who don't know, Graham Greene is an iconic, acclaimed, Indigenous Canadian actor, an Academy Award nominated performer with a Gemini for a Dragon show. That's the range we're talking about. And the kid who played Matt, Daniel DeSanto, you might recognize him from Mean Girls or Are You Afraid of the Dark? And Kirk Dunn, the guy who actually wore the Dudley costume in later seasons, he now does fiber art. The dragon does fiber art. I don't know why that's the funniest thing I've learned this month, but here we are. Before we close this out, I promised you the Puppeteer reveals from the Puzzle Place. Noel McNeil, Puppeteer on the Puzzle Place, went on to perform Bear on Bear in the Big Blue House, the big, warm, jazz-loving bear that put millions of kids to bed. That was a Puzzle Place graduate. Carmen Osbar, also on the Puzzle Place, went on to perform Rosita on Sesame Street. Still does. She has an official Sesame Workshop profile. A Puzzle Place alum is literally on Sesame Street right now. Matt Vogel, Puzzle Place, went on to perform Big Bird and the Count and became a key Muppet performer for Disney. The Puzzle Place was not just a kids' show. It was a farm team for the entire world of children's puppetry. That show trained the people who would go on to shape the childhoods of kids for the next 30 years, and most people have completely forgotten it existed. That's the thing about all three of these shows. The Puzzle Place, the busy world of Richard Scarry, Dudley the Dragon. None of them were accidents. None of them were cheap. None of them were phoning it in. They were made by people who genuinely believed that the time a preschooler spent in front of a TV mattered, that it was worth $6.5 million and a federal grant, that it was worth flying your cartoon from Showtime to Nick Jr. and back, that it was worth dressing a man in a full-body green dragon costume every single day and teaching kids not to litter with songs. And somewhere in your brain right now, there's a theme song you can't quite remember the words to, a puppet face you haven't thought about in 20 years, a cartoon car shaped like something ridiculous, and it's yours. It always was. But here's what I need you to think about on your way to the comments. What's the show you remember almost nothing about, except one specific detail? The color of the set, the sound of the theme, a character name you can't fully place. Drop it below, because your half memory is my next episode. And if today unlocks something, that show is right there. More doors, more trapdoors, more theme songs your brain has been holding hostage since 1997. I'll see you in there.